Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Now, first of all, this is not a mini PC. So you'll see I've got a mini PC out here because that's how we're going to configure this. I have done no rehearsal. I've done no real serious prep work on this. So this isn't really going to be a how-to video. This is far more than what I can cover in one video. And so I think today what this is going to be is an introduction. Because quite frankly, there are YouTube videos out there from 2 years ago. I only recently learned of this device. I stumbled on it. I wrote to the company and said, I'd like to review this. Would you send me one? And not only did they send me one, they sent me a really nice letter here. And I've never seen a company reach out like this before. So I want to read the letter to you because I'm so impressed, even on heavy stock paper, like, you know, it's really nice. Sometimes when you deal with these Asian companies, they just throw something in a plastic bag and send it to you. These guys, on the other hand, very professional. I'm very impressed. Hey, Carey, we're looking forward to your review of our AmberPro. This is the AmberPro. Our Amber products are network-attached storage solutions with private cloud capabilities, an alternative to lugging around USB storage, as well as having subscription accounts with Google, iCloud, Dropbox, etc. That means no more monthly fees to keep your data automatically backed up, as well as dealing with privacy concerns of those aforementioned companies. You'll notice that our AmberPro is a prosumer small medium business solution with a few more capabilities, including a wireless router and Docker support. That's going to allow you to set up all sorts of apps to host. You can configure this when logging in with a browser to check out all of its advanced capabilities. We are a small yet growing company and are making constant changes to our software to make it easier for consumers to use, along with continually adding features. We welcome all feedback that you might have. Feel free to contact if you have any questions setting it up. And this comes from Ted. Okay, well, first of all, I've never seen anything like this before. That personal touch, first class. One of the things you're going to notice right away, apart from the cultural difference, this isn't coming from Asia. This is not an Asian company. This comes, I think this is from the Netherlands. Well, they have a US, this came from the US, but the company itself is based in the Netherlands, right? So this has a 1-year warranty. Of course, they make them in China, but the whole thing is designed, engineered, and supported by the parent company, right? Obviously, in the US, they have a US division, but we sort of have that Scandinavian, Netherlands is Scandinavian, isn't it? We sort of have that Scandinavian creativity. Usually when we think of products, at least us here in the US, coming from that Scandinavia region, it's usually very high quality product and often not cheap. When we buy the stuff from Asia, we expect that to be cheap, unless it's an Apple product. But generally speaking, we do expect quality. I guess the one exception might be IKEA. But you think of Volvo, well, they're not around anymore. Saab, they're not around anymore. I'm at a loss, but there's lots of respect that I have for products coming out of Scandinavia. They're usually quite minimalistic, quite well built, last a very long time, and generally have very good customer support. So when I saw this product comes from the Netherlands, we don't see a lot of products coming out of the Netherlands. And when I found out it came out 2 years ago and I wondered why I hadn't heard of it, well, it's fairly new here to the US. So as part of that expansion, or what's the right word? The introduction of their product to the US market, I thought this would make a great video for us because this is very unlike any router we've looked at, and it's very unlike any NAS we've looked at. It's very, very different, but you're going to see similarities in the way they've set up things. The idea behind this is that when we talk about network attached storage, a lot of people's eyes glaze over and they think it's too complicated. And I've gone through the setup of a Synology, and I think I've made it pretty darn simple. But some people see that as a lot of work. They might say, yeah, I could follow those instructions, but it's going to take me 90 minutes to go through your video to set this up. But then once you set it up, you shouldn't have to mess around with it anymore. This is designed to be very simple. This is for the every person, getting back to the way that I've designed my channel to be for the every person. This is right up my alley as far as, anything I know about it. And we'll find out more when we get hands-on. We took this out of the box to take pictures, but I have never turned it on. This is going to be a genuine and authentic reaction as I start to discover and understand how this device operates, and you'll join me on that. We'll look at it together. Maybe you'll help me understand some things that I may not be getting right away. The idea here is that they want to make this as simple as possible for people who still want to have like container abilities, which, to be honest, I don't even use containers. All right. I'm a tech guy. None of my clients use containers. I don't use containers. And the Docker capability on this, hosting Docker apps, is really something they're pushing, yet I've never used one in my life. So, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything, but ignorance may be bliss on that. And that's why I can't really cover this in full detail today. But what I can do is give you the gist of it, what to expect, because some of you right out of the gate are going to know, not for me. And others are going to say, wow, that's really fascinating. I'd like to learn more. The good news is there's already video reviews done from Europe that you can find here on YouTube from 2 years ago that can go over every detail and far more than we're going to do today. My hope is to come back and do another follow-up video or two as I start to familiarize myself with the product. But essentially, what we've got here is a router, a wireless router. And I just want you to think about that is our main thing, router. It also functions as a NAS. So typically, Synology plugs into a router, or a router may have a USB port, but without RAID support. So it's not really a NAS in the sense of a proper NAS. This takes the best of a NAS, the best of a wireless router, and it mashes them together. And what's interesting is, when you need to log into your router, you would type in your IP address typically, and you'll go to your router's login page, which is exactly how this works. But then when you want to log into your NAS, like a Synology, you would type in its IP address, which is different from the router. And they have a clever solution for that, since obviously this is just going to have the one IP address. How do you differentiate which one you want to log into? And I know that much about it. I'm going to read to you what the box says right here on the back. We'll go over some of the specifications. This says it's an Intel dual-core Gemini Lake CPU. It's a 1.1 gigahertz CPU, so it's not a mini PC, nor is it designed to be. It will boost to 2.6. It's got dual 2.5-inch hard drives. 2.5-inch hard drives. They are mechanical. It's a built-in AC 2600 Wi-Fi router, which is 4x4 multi-in, multi-out, or MIMO beamforming. It's got an HDMI output. That's if you wanted to make this a media server, right? The HDMI output's not meant to be to a desktop, but rather the output of media files you might be playing on through a Plex server. It's got a gigabit Ethernet WAN input port and 2 gigabit Ethernet LAN ports. So it's 3 ports total, so it's like a 3-port router. It has 2 USB 3.0 ports. One's a Type A port, one's a Type C. And of course, you can expand your storage with those ports as well. And they have their own operating system called AmberOS. It supports 2.4 and 5 gigahertz dual band Wi-Fi. It's 802.11 AC. So this is a couple years old, as I mentioned. So we're still dealing with the configuration from 2 years ago. And they haven't updated this yet. I don't know that it needs to be. However, who doesn't like more power? It comes with an app and cloud. So you can essentially take all your photos off your phone and upload them to your own private cloud rather than to, say, Google Photo or Apple's iPhoto, where your big corporation is holding your data. You can hold your own data. If you're one of those people that wants to stay away from the big corporations, you don't want to pay for subscription fees, because as we collect more and more data, we take more and more photos, we need more and more space. You will use up your free space as designed. And then what choice do you have but to either provide your own or just pay the money? And so I pay the money. I pay for Google Drive, 2 terabytes. And I could easily create my own cloud, but I just haven't, to be honest. I like the idea that Google's taking care of everything as far as maintenance, backups, updates. But I think that's going to change here soon. It's got something called AmberLive for the desktop and AmberLive Companion, which is an app for your phone, whether it's iOS or Android. It's got something called Camera Roll Auto Backup for your phone, again, Apple or Android. It's got something called Easy Sync, and that's for clients talking to the Amber, and Easy Backup. That's to synchronize and back up any workstations or computers you have on your network. It's also got remote access and sharing file access, obviously. It's got a file and folder explorer. It's got AI-powered facial indexing on your photos. It'll scan your photos if you wish to enable that feature and identify which photos have people in them, and use metadata to sort your photos. It has media streaming with Smart Play and TV casting. This is a little more than 6.5 inches tall, a little under 6.5 inches wide and deep, weighs 4.4 pounds, which is 2,000 grams. It's got something called data at rest encryption and secure data transfer, which is TLS and SSL. It does require a broadband internet connection to take advantage of it, and you definitely would want to use this with your phone, because it's the whole point is to be your own cloud. In the box, it says it contains the device itself, the power adapter, a quick start guide, and an Ethernet cable. Okay, everything sounds great. I'm liking everything I'm hearing on this thing. It looks very modern. It almost looks like an Amble device, except that it's black. And with it being a low power CPU, that's going to tell you it's going to sip power. I think this is a 65 watt power adapter this comes with, and the fans are obviously not going to have to ramp up very loud, so it should be very, very quiet, especially compared to a NAS, which may have a more powerful CPU, but at a cost, right? It's going to consume more power. It's going to be noisier, generally speaking. So I wouldn't turn my nose up at the CPU, given what this purpose is. In fact, if you compare the CPU with any of the wireless routers we've tested last 6-8 months ago, it's kind of on par with what a high-end router would have. In fact, its price is also on par with a high-end router. But bear in mind, this comes with storage. Most network-attached storage is sort of, you have to populate the storage yourself. This version is the 1 terabyte version, and so it's, I'm guessing, has 2 1 terabyte 2.5 inch drives in a RAID 1 configuration. You could change that. You could put it in a RAID 0 to get 2 terabytes out of it and lose your backup ability, your mirroring ability, which I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but you could. These are mechanical drives, not solid state drives. If they were solid state drives, perhaps they might be more money, at least 2 years ago. Today now, solid state drives are very, very inexpensive. Pros and cons with regards to mechanical versus solid state. I don't know that you're really going to get much better performance over your network with a solid state versus mechanical, because your network is generally going to be the bottleneck. So you might make a little boost in performance, but nonetheless, because the configuration on this is still the same as it's been since it was introduced 2 years ago, I would be very curious to see how they follow this up, or whenever they decide to follow this up with a new model. But this is definitely the sweet spot for people who don't want the technical setup of a NAS. And you could plug this into any existing router you've got if you wanted to, although it's really intended take the place of your router. Now, I want to go over to the website and see how the folks over at LatticeWork introduce this product and describe this product. And we have a link for the website in the video description. Let me go over to my window capture. Here we go. So what the AmberPro is really emphasizing here is privacy. It's about keeping your data away from the big companies, controlling it yourself, and saving the money, right? Saving those monthly subscription fees. Store your data locally and then access it from anywhere in the world. They are calling this a smart personal cloud device. And they have a bunch of third-party apps, just like your phone might have apps from third parties, or a Synology or a QNAP has apps. Same idea there. You can host your own cloud. AmberPro gives you the power of the cloud without the headaches. It allows you to securely back up, access, and share your data without a subscription. And it's unlike anything else with the built-in Wi-Fi routing and third-party app support available via Docker. So again, I have never used anything with Docker, so I'm certainly not an expert, far from it, and definitely more for me to learn in there. Now here they're showing it's got 2 mechanical drives. They're 2.5-inch drives. AmberPro keeps your data safe and accessible by storing a complete copy of all your files on a second redundant drive. That's why a 2 terabyte device comes with two 2 terabyte drives. Should one drive fail, the AmberPro will continue to operate until the bad drive is replaced with a new one. This redundant protection, called RAID 1, in addition to regular backups, keeps your operations and your data safe. AmberPro makes this process easy. This should be bold, underlined, and italicized, because even though you've got a redundant drive, should a drive fail, it doesn't help you in the sense of getting a ransomware infection, being a victim of a burglary, a fire, a flood, any sort of natural disaster. So it's important you have proper backups as well. But more likely than not, the reason you're going to need a backup is due to drive failure. But it's just not the only reason. It's just the most common reason. With our app store and the ability to load any app using Docker, the possibilities are endless. Here are just a few. Home Assistant. This is a central control system for all of your smart home devices. Kodi. Many of you are familiar with Kodi, a free and open source media player application. Nextcloud. That's a self-hosted productivity platform that keeps you in control. That's a little vague. I don't know what that means. Odoo is open source CRM and ERP software for businesses. So CRM software, salesmen might use, it's a customer resource manager, client resource manager, typically used in businesses, particularly very often in sales. Plex, I think you're very familiar with what Plex is. This is a way that you can stream video, music, and photos to other internet-connected devices around your home, usually TVs or smartphones. Roon is it manages all your music files and streaming content. Yeah, you could be your own Spotify if you want to. You can drop that subscription too. Put all your, assuming you have the music, put it on this AmberPro, stream it to your phone, whatever. SyncThing is a continuous file synchronization program. Ooh, okay. I like synchronization programs. WordPress, I think we're all familiar with blogging, and quite often WordPress is used to create a blog. You got to figure out a place to host it. But here you can create and share your own website with WordPress. There are optional enhancements. It says with all core capabilities, while all core capabilities are available without subscription, there are these AmberPro exclusive enhancements that are available for those power users that want a little more. One's called Amber Anywhere. Make third-party and custom Docker apps accessible with a public URL. This is possible without tinkering with your network and with maximum security and support anywhere. You can enable trusted administrators to access your device remotely to provide tech support with restrictions over what they can access and a full audit log. Then it gets into the smartphone app, photo organizer. They claim it's got simple setup. You can connect it to any device, Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS device. It's subscription free. And again, they want to emphasize the privacy of this device because it's in your hands. And so you don't have to worry about trusting a corporation or paying for that. And of course, they've got an area here where you can read reviews and see technical specifications. Now they have a smaller version here called the AmberX, smaller and cheaper. We're looking at the AmberPro today, and we'll talk more about the AmberX in a future video. But for now, if you want to learn more about it, you can head up to the website, myamberlife.com. Read and go through the website in more detail than we're going to do today. Now, let me go to camera one and let's get this thing out of the box. And let's hope our internet outages are out of the way. Switch back over to chat room so I can see what you guys are saying. Matt Soloff joins us from Sweden, but I guess he has to go. All right, well, thanks for joining us and saying hello. Always good to see you. Badging Guy said he's got Plex on his Synology. Yeah, a lot of people use Plex on a Synology. I don't, but a lot of people do. There's no link in the show notes. Hey, Cam. Oh, refresh the show notes. Thank you, Camera Girl. Camera Girl set up today's video all by herself. So she's learning. Thank you for letting us know. If you notice anything else missing or wrong, let me know and we'll get it corrected. All right, let's get this thing unboxed and see what we got. I'm excited. Okay, first of all, I have stickers. Actually, the stickers weren't in the box. They sent me stickers. I'm a big fan of having stickers. It makes things go faster. You ever seen a race car win a race that didn't have stickers on it? Obviously, stickers make things go faster. The logic of the youth today. We've got a little card here to get you started. On the back, it says if you need help, you can scan these QR codes if you're having trouble finding the app for your phone. You can go directly to it with the QR codes. We've got a quick installation guide, and we have an Amber quick start guide. All good. And one of the first things you're going to note, well, one of the first things I noticed, so I'm not reading Chinglish. I've actually got, it's well written. It's not like broken English written by somebody that speaks it as a second language. And there's a certain level of professionalism that warms the cockles of my heart. Ah, nice. That's what I like to see. I'm so jaded, so accustomed to just really poor grammar and misuse of words coming from a lot of the products we see here from Asia, a lot of the mini PCs, that I've kind of grown numb to it. So now when I see something that's like, oh wow, this is like the way we used to do things in the 80s and 90s. Everything's proper and professional. It stands out now. Like that used to be the default. Now that's something special. Come on, when's the last time you've seen proper instructions, proper English, proper grammar, proper spelling, proper word use and context? All right. And you got to remember, because this isn't Asian based, it's going to be a little bit more money because you are getting that professionalism. You are getting people that are, in my opinion, in this industry at a more refined level, at least in the American market, than what we're seeing coming out of Asia. You see a lot of corners cut on a lot of the products, a lot of the mini PCs that we're getting from these companies we've never heard of before. That, you know, are they going to be around in a couple of years? I don't know. How do you get support if you need it? A lot of times you got email, but you know, if you had to send a unit back, you would have to ship it all the way back to China. And in many cases, that's going to take 2 months before you get it back, and it's going to cost an arm and a leg for shipping. Why even bother? You know, it's kind of disposable at that point. Just buy another one. With something like this, however, you're going to get regular, normal support like we used to get when we bought electronic stuff. It still exists today. But that's also going to be represented in the price as well. So understand, you really do get what you pay for. And if that's important to you, to have that peace of mind, to have a company that's going to back you up, have proper documentation, and be able to speak to a knowledgeable person and not a script reader, you're going to pay a little bit more for that. Okay. But it's not outrageously expensive. It's not like you're buying a Rolls Royce. It's competitively priced with a high-end router or even a populated NAS. Remember, this is populated with drives. So keep all that in mind. And those NASs aren't routers, and those routers aren't NASs. So then how much are you spending when you got to buy one of each? Way more than this. All right, we've got an accessories box here, which contains our power brick, which I believe is 65 watts. We've got an Ethernet cable, and we've got a Mickey Mouse style laptop power connector, sometimes called a cloverleaf power connector. So I will need the power brick, but I don't need any of this other stuff. That's Olaf said he will check out the replay tomorrow. Right on. Enjoy your day. And again, thanks for popping in and saying hello all the way out there from Sweden. All right, so now let's see what else we got here. I'm going to tip this forward just so you can see how this is packaged out. It was a nicer wrap before I took it out for photos and inspection. We weren't quite sure what the model number of this was. I didn't see it written anywhere on the box. So we had to take it out to find the model number to create the thumbnail. We just knew it was an AmberPro 1 terabyte, but we knew it had a model number. And it's the, what, AM12? Is that what we call it? That's what they call it? Yeah, AM12. We've got a silicon, a desiccant silica gel packet that says do not eat. I always have fun with these because nothing else says do not eat. So I guess you can eat everything else, just not this. You know, you tell me not to do something. It's a bit dry. Get it? Because it's a desiccant packet. It's dry. Never mind. Don't do that. Don't do what I just did. Not if you're smart. But the good news is you don't have to be smart to appreciate and be able to utilize this thing here. And again, that's the whole point. And when I say smart, I mean smart with technology. A lot of us are smart in other ways. We all have our talents. Some things come more naturally to us, like perhaps playing a musical instrument might be something very easy for you. It would be something I would struggle with and give up in frustration, since I wouldn't be getting results fast enough and it would all seem very chaotic. To each their own. Here's the box. It's a matte black, so you're not going to see fingerprints. And I'll walk it over to the camera so you guys can see close up just what you're going to get for the money here. So this, I guess, lights up when it's turned on. I think it's blue. It's all smooth, except around back, where you're going to have your blue WAN port. That's where you're going to plug in your modem or your internet source. And then basically a network switch right here, 2 ports to go back out. We've got a power button back here, which is rubber. Oh, I like that. HDMI output. We have a reset button here. We have our 2 USB ports we talked about. There's type A and our type C. These are Gen 1, I think. These are 5 gigabit per second USB ports. We've got a barrel style power connector. Did I say HDMI yet? Oh, we got a WPS connector. All the buttons are rubber. I like that. Feels good. I don't use WPS. You guys use WPS? The idea being that if you wanted to add a computer, wireless computer, or a wireless printer, or a wireless device to your network and you didn't want to set up the SSID and the passcode, you could hit the WPS button on the router, and then within 90 seconds or 2 minutes, whatever it is, go hit the WPS button on the wireless device you want to connect. Quite often people use that with setting up printers, and it's all done for you. I'm not a big fan of using WPS. However, again, remember who this is built for. This is designed for your average person, not necessarily a technical person, but again, maybe somebody just a smidge more than your average user who understands the concepts that are at play here, right? A lot of people may not even be able to wrap their mind around the concept. So we got to start with that. Once you understand the concept, then utilizing it is very easy for anybody to accomplish. Or so they say. It certainly appears that way. We'll set this over here. Let me think about how I want to hook this up. We're going to plug in power. Oh, see, I'm going to have a problem. I need a cloverleaf style power connector to power the mini PC. And I also need one for here. I always keep one right here. And I'm going to use that for the mini PC. I'm also going to need to set up the mini PC to the capture card on the streaming computer. I need a keyboard and a mouse on the mini PC. Notice I'm not plugging a keyboard or mouse into this. That's not what the USB port is for. This is not a mini PC. My initial, when the first time I saw this, I thought, oh, it's a mini PC, a NAS, and a router. But no, it's not a mini PC at all. All right, so there's our keyboard and mouse dongle plugged in. I turned those on. That's hooked up. So this needs to be plugged into our internet. So we'll grab the cable that I normally plug into the PC. And instead, we're going to plug it into the blue port because this is going to be our source, just as though this was coming from our modem. And then we'll run a cable from here to here, or I could hook it up Wi-Fi. But given that we're live and, Wi-Fi is, I got a lot of Wi-Fi happening in here, so there could be a lot of congestion. So we'll just go ahead and just grab a simple little network cable, and it's easy enough. We're so close anyway. What's the point of running? I've never understood when I've seen people run Wi-Fi from a computer to a router 2 feet away. Why are you doing that? Just get a cable, plug it in. It's way more secure, way more reliable. Either of those ports is going to be fine for that. And I gotta find a cloverleaf power cable here, or I'll just use the one they sent. There's a novel idea, Carey. Turns out I am going to need that one after all. Back in the accessories box here for a moment, and we will pull out the Ethernet. We're going to leave the Ethernet cable in the box that it came with, but we'll use the cloverleaf power cable there. If you can't picture what I'm talking about when I mention cloverleaf or Mickey Mouse power cable, when I say Mickey Mouse, I don't mean cheap. It looks like the profile of Mickey Mouse. Sometimes it's called a cloverleaf power cable. It's quite common in laptop power adapters. All right, so let's get this plugged in over here. And then we'll plug, we'll plug this in over here. Okay. And I'm going to turn it on. There's a power button back here somewhere, right? Oh, this is that. It's for power button. Feeling for that rubber button. Oh, what's that? Oh, I heard a beep. See a light come on? It's booting. So while that's booting, we'll also boot up our mini PC. And I think I turned it on. Check my HDMI input here. Bear with me for a second. Let's put myself in a corner. Oh, yeah, it's already booted. All right. Okie dokie. So I think this light goes solid when it's booted up and ready. There's no noise coming out of this. If it's got a fan, I don't hear it. The drives are going to be located Guess they're back here. That might have been something I wanted to look at before we started. Yeah, there's 2 screws on the bottom here. Then this piece, when you take all the cables out, this piece will slide back, or away rather. And then inside the drives are there installed horizontally on each side. And these are 2.5-inch desktop drives. They are not NAS drives. Do they even make 2.5-inch NAS drives? Fox Voyager says, I wonder if you can disable the router feature. The problem with disabling the router feature is all of your cloud-based interaction with the unit that is simplified because it's acting as your router. If you disable the router feature on this, you are missing the plot. If you're that mentality, this is not the device for you, because that means now you're going to have to do some configuration on your router side of things to start routing the traffic accordingly to the apps. You absolutely can. All right, let's be clear. If you wanted to, you could completely undermine the ease of use that this is designed for and that you're paying extra for to make it more complicated. What I would recommend you do is the other way around. Use this as your router. And then if you also want to continue to use your existing router, just plug your router into it as though it were a computer and set your router into bridge mode. That would keep your life so much simpler. You just got to reverse the thinking around the other way. You definitely want this to be the main router if you want to simplify your access to your own cloud and sharing and, you know, being able to back up your phone photos and data wherever you are in the world to this thing sitting at home or in the office. And while it is possible to set it up the other way around, way more complicated, kind of defeats the purpose. You might as well just get a Synology if that's what you want to do. So just bear that in mind. There's can you and there's should you. Yes, you can. Can't recommend it. It's making your life so much more complicated than it needs to be. How long has Amber been in the NAS business? Though it's not always an indication of the product's longevity. You know, that's a fair question. Let me see. A quick little Google search here, and we'll see. We'll just ask that straight up. How long has AmberPro been in NAS business? We just got a long beep. The light is now blinking green. That's a new one. Curious what that means. I probably could read the quick start guide. The company LatticeWork, which I think is really where the focus needs to be. LatticeWork is a term used in the industry. It's also the name of a company here. So finding the article about the company, you know, I'm wondering now. We just go to the About page on their website, see what it says about them. Because they're based in Scandinavia, they have been around longer in Europe than they've been around in the US. So while they're new to me, I'm in the US, so let's see. Company, here we go. About us. LatticeWork is the company behind the Amber X and Amber Pro. We're on a mission to change the world. We would like you to join us. Dr. Pantas Satarja, the founder of LatticeWork, grew up in Singapore. The seed of his future was sown as a teenager with his increasing fascination with electronics. He eventually came to the United States to study electrical engineering and computer science at the University of California, Berkeley, where he earned a BS, an MS, and PhD degrees. He worked afterwards at the IBM Almaden Research Center, where he created the first CMOS red channel chip at IBM. This was just the beginning of a life innovating. It would eventually hold over 300 US patents related to semiconductor and storage system technologies. That's back in the early 90s. Let me just forward up a little bit here. In 2014, motivated by the increasing reports of data either being stolen or exploited by those trusted to protect it, and driven by his desire for technology to have a net positive impact on the world, Dr. Satarja founded LatticeWork, a self-funded company headquartered in San Jose, California, now with over 100 employees around the world, invested and built its own cloud service infrastructure to power its debut Amber product line. Described as a personal hybrid cloud, these products and infrastructure backing them let people truly protect their digital privacy and data. So interestingly, it's saying here, founded in Silicon Valley, but all the information on the website certainly indicates it's based in the Netherlands. All right, so you can read more if you want to study more about it in the About section of their website. All right, let me go back to, where was I? Okay. Martin says that Eindhoven, Netherlands is not Scandinavia. I thought Netherlands was part of Scandinavia, but you know, I'm American, so what do I know about geography? Let's see. It says that it wants to start us off by downloading the Amber Manager companion app and then plug it all in, which we've done. And it wants us to launch the Amber Manager app and set it up through the app. But we can also set it up through the desktop, which is what I want to do. And it says to set this up, we would go, let's see, I need to use the right mouse. Let me go full screen over here for me so I can see it the way you guys at home can see it. I'm gonna go full screen here. We're gonna, there's my mouse. Click yes on that, even though it doesn't really matter for what we're doing. That's irrelevant. I'm gonna open up a browser and I'm going to go to set up the router. We'll go to lattice router.local, enter. Hey. That works exactly like they said it would. We have to log in. The login is admin. We're obviously going to change this, but for right now, admin. No. Oh, it just wants a password, not a login. Okay, router login password, admin 1234. Okay. Just have to read what's written on the page, Carey. And this is the router setup side of the device. First and foremost, there's a network attached storage cloud-based setup like you would be familiar with on a Synology. And then there's a router-based setup. That's where you set up your Wi-Fi, you set up your router information as you would see on a router, right? Pretty common sense. Here we can set up our wireless, 2.5 and 2.4 and 5. We can set up a guest network, which you see is defaulted as off. We can set up parental controls, all the similar features you're accustomed to on mid to high-end routers. On the left side of the page, I can see all the typical items you would normally find on the left side of a page on the ASUS and Netgear routers we've shown here. It's very similar in the layout, very comfortable and familiar. So I like that they haven't completely reinvented everything. Let's see, I'm going to go to firmware. Oh, that's time zone. Why did I think it said, wow, it's just, I'm one off. I see what I did. We're going to go ahead and put this to Arizona, which is -7, and we do not honor daylight saving time here. We never move our clocks in Phoenix. In fact, in all of Arizona, except for the top right corner, that's on New Mexico time for some reason, Indian reservation. Firmware upgrade, check now. Your firmware is up to date. That's easy, right? You don't have to go find it yourself and download it, unzip a file, and then point it to where your file is saved on your drive. A lot of people don't know where files go when they download them. So this keeps it all very simple. And of course, the dashboard is the main page, that default page that we go to when we first log in. And I don't know, there's much to delve into here other than your typical router configuration. I don't see anything too crazy here. Looks pretty straightforward. That's good. That means I can use what I've already learned and I don't have to learn anything new. All right, so that's our router setup. Now, as far as storage setup, now we have to get into the NAS part of things. So if we want to get into the NAS, let me see. How do we do that? It does say we could set up, click detect connection type to set up the internet connection, or click set up my storage. You know what? We didn't get that option. It says we were supposed to see that when we signed in. Let me close this. Let me reopen. Let's try that again. Lattice router.local. Oh, go to the storage login page. All right, so it looks like they've changed it from what the directions show. Connection's not private. Continue there anyway. We're still local, all right? So it doesn't matter if it's not private. We're on our local area network here. And it finds, because you could have multiple units, right? So it finds what's on the network, much like the Synology Assistant that I showed in the Synology video. And my video may be in the way here. Let me turn off camera 1 momentarily so that we can see the whole screen. Okay. We'll go to Connect. Each NAS you would have on your network, because as I mentioned, you can have more than one, would have its own required sign-in. Okay, so for this one, it'll be admin and admin 1, 2, 3. And they want you to change that. You don't want, you're going to open this thing up to the internet. You don't want to be leaving default logins and passwords unless you just want people to steal your data and infect you with viruses, in which case, you know, to each his own, I guess, if that's what you're into. So I've already set, it's already got the time zone, I guess it got from the router, which makes sense. We hit next. And this is a first time setup. You should only have to do this once. And Amber settings, you can give the NAS a name. That's pretty specific, isn't it? That's fine, that's fine. Data, okay, so the volume type, this is where you can choose RAID 1 or RAID 0. And this gets us to the point that I was trying to make earlier, that they are trying to simplify this for the every person to be able to understand it. When you start talking about RAID 1 and RAID 0, people's eyes glaze over. The average general public, even those familiar, somewhat familiar and comfortable with technology, they can't remember which is which. Was RAID 1 the one that stripes or the one that mirrors, or was that RAID 0? Right? Because those of us that are technical, we're going to pull our hair out going, it's so easy. RAID 0 is the stripe, RAID 1's the mirror. Yeah. And then 5 minutes later, which one did you say was the mirror? Why don't we just call it a stripe or a mirror? How about that idea, right? So here's what the folks over at LatticeWork have done. We go look at the screen and the way things are described. By default, it wants to put this in RAID 1, which is data protection mode. And that means we're only going to have half the storage available. This is a 1 terabyte version, and that means it's got two 1 terabyte drives in it, defaulted into data protection mode. So one drive always mimics what the other one does at all times, instantly. So if one drive fails, the other drive has an instant backup. However, if we wanted to use both 1 terabyte drives to have maximum capacity of 2 terabytes, if either drive fails, we lose everything unless we manually backed it up to something else. And since there's very little performance to be gained over a network, this is only a 1 gig network. It's not 2.5 gig. It's not 5 gig. It's not 10 gig. This is not intended for people that are heavily intense data IO throughput. Give me the speed, right? This is intended for the every person and for somebody who's not into all that technical mumbo jumbo. So the default is the recommended setup, especially if you're not technical. You don't want to put performance over data protection. Now, data protection doesn't replace or negate the need for a backup because, as I mentioned, viruses, thefts, fires, floods, etc., they occur. Just watch the news. It's happening. We're seeing extreme weather events all over the world. And, California is having an earthquake and a fire at the same time. Of course, the fires in Hawaii, although those may not be, one might argue that they're not necessarily acts of nature. Maybe, a lightning strike can cause a fire, or a lightning strike can knock over something like an electrical pole that can start a fire. And if the area has not been well tended to and it's dry and we haven't had a lot of rain, it's going to go up like tinder. So in any event, it doesn't negate the need for a backup. This is just basic data protection, not data backup. There's a difference. You can encrypt the storage. If you do that, it's going to slow the device down a little bit. But depending on where you are as far as what kind of security you want to have, should somebody get their hands on this, let's say somebody burglarized. Well, I'm not quite sure that's really going to help. Maybe. It depends on how they've implemented the encryption. I don't know. I would prefer not to use the encryption myself. It's not going to make a massive dent in performance, but maybe 10%, maybe. I don't know until I try it, but just based on my experience in the past with encryption on NAS devices, it does have a performance impact. All right, we're going to click next. Let's see what the next screen is here. Nick Poverman said you meant a hurricane and an earthquake. Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, it was a hurricane and an earthquake at the same time in California, just like a day after the big fire in Lahaina there. Is that in Maui? All right, so anyway, right now the unit is setting up those two drives. It's formatting them. I'm a big fan of the BTRFS file system. Talked a lot about it. I've talked about the problems I've had with NASs in the past that just had ext4 or they were using ext4, which was great, back in the day, but it wasn't great. File corruptions were pretty common. So by using the btree file system or BTRFS, Butterfuss, that's what draws me to certain models of Synology. If I buy a Synology model, it better support BTRFS or I'm sending it back. That's how important that is. This is BTRFS, period. No choice. That's what it is. Okay, what does this say now? I have to go back full screen. We have to set a password for this. All right, it's going to make us set the password. I can appreciate that. So this is my password, is what I'll do for today's video. Obviously, I'm not that way. This is my password. Will it let me use that? Apply default password. Yikes. I don't want to see that. Please enter a valid password. Did I misspell it? And password must be what? Should be strong. Yeah, well, remember, if you're going to open this thing up to the internet, don't take your password lightly like I am. I'm taking my password lightly because this is a sample. I would never actually use that as my password. Nor would I show my real password on a video on YouTube for everybody to just know it. All right, so common sense here. So I'm trying to enter something simple, but this may want a combination of letters and numbers and things. So how about this is my PA55WORD exclamation point. This is, they got a match. This is my PA55WORD exclamation. That should meet the requirements. Okay, so you can pair this with Amber servers, right? So that it essentially creates the access you need by providing, sort of being the middleman. I'm guessing this is how this works, to make the connection. It's not actually hosting you or anything like that. It's try and find the right word. It'll come to me in a minute. You basically register with Amber Cloud, and it's the mediator or the middleman that makes those two things happen. But otherwise, there's no real. Synology does the same thing with a Synology ID. There's no access to your data. It's not really doing anything but, the words, facilitating the connection. So here you would use, you can use an email address or an Amber Cloud ID and a password to set this all up for pairing it. I don't know if I have much of a choice on this, what I can do. Please fill out this field. Okay. If you already have an Amber Cloud ID, you can sign in now. Otherwise, we have to create one. Okay, well, we'll just, this isn't really something I want to fill out online, because then you would be able to sign in as me. All right, so here we're at this screen that that allows us, if we want to set up users. Now, there's also a button that says skip down at the bottom, so we don't have to do this right now. So I'm going to go over here and choose skip. It says initialization complete. Your Amber setup is completed. AI facial recognition package will be ready soon. Finish. So the unit just beeped. The light has stopped blinking green. It's now gone to a solid blue. And as you can see with me here, it says welcome to Amber OS. Let me get rid of camera one my own way here. Obviously, they want you to register a Amber Cloud ID and pair it with your local Amber account to make your hybrid cloud connectivity. Use the Amber Amber apps to back up, access, and share files. So to back up, access, and share files. Receive early fault detection notification via email. And you can download the Amber apps here, which I don't really want to do right now. And take a look at what they've got. This should open up a page online that shows us the Amber. Is it IX or 9? It looks like IX, Amber IX, that you take your memories anywhere, stream them, cast them, and share them on your terms with automatic camera roll backup. You can even free up some storage space off your phone while you're at it. An Amber Manager that'll assist you in the setup and configuration of Wi-Fi and other advanced features of your AmberPro device. Then there's the Amber iX desktop. Experience all the benefits and features of your Amber device, including folder backup, remote sharing, and more. And they have it for Windows. All right, let's grab it. Why not? Since that seems like a pretty critical part to simplifying the use of this. Thomas Tidwell joins us in the chat. Oliver wants to know, does it require you to connect to their cloud? I guess it depends on if you want to be able to easily access it. So once again, I want to re-emphasize as many times as I need to, this is not for technical people. If you're a technical person, there may be a way for you to configure your own access yourself. But there's already been devices out there for years and years and years that have enabled the technical people to do that. And even the technical people still would create like a Synology ID for accessing some of the cloud-based access and simplifying access. In much the same way, for the device that this is designed for, you should not avoid creating the account because the whole point of that account is to simplify access. Again, if you're a technical person, you probably are going to not be satisfied with this device because all those things that it's doing to make life easier, you might find to be out of your control. And people that are really technical people, they always want control. That's the whole thing you need to understand is, in general, those people who are most technical are also some of the most controlling people you will ever meet in your life. This is not for those people. Those people can make this work, yes, but you're missing the point of why this device exists. So I'm sure that there's a way that you can work around just like any other NAS device, not creating the ID. It's obviously not forcing us to do that. However, you'd be defeating the whole point of owning this. In my opinion, there's other devices better suited for somebody of your personality. And there's plenty of them. This is kind of unique in what it's offering here. And so to take the whole benefit of it and dismiss it defeats the whole purpose for its existence, in my opinion. So let me go back full screen. Let's install this to the Amber IX setup wizard. Okay, next, 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 next. Yes. And close. That's still the website. Minimize that. Double click here. We have to allow access through the firewall on our local network for the software to communicate to the ports it wants to onto the unit. It's obviously for security reasons. And here it comes. App analytics. Okay, I mean, you don't have to turn that on. That's for sending data anonymously back to the folks at LatticeWork so they can improve the device. You'll see that offered a lot on software. And, well, it's the idea if you want to help them make the product better to allow anonymous data sharing with regards to perhaps if things are crashing, or they can determine, I suppose, which apps are used more, or they're just basically seeing logs. They don't know where the logs are coming from, and they're not getting any personal data, just how the device is being used. And again, it's mostly designed to address any issues without you having to make them aware of the issues. They're already going to know if you turn that option on. It's optional, you don't have to. If you are the Amber owner, please make sure your Amber is set up before you use Amber to set up your device. Yeah, so I think we already set it up. Next, what is Amber IX? It's an integrated file explorer that allows you to access all your files in your personal hybrid cloud. Remotely access your files on Amber and Amber Cloud account. Back up and sync your files to Amber. Share your files with friends, family, and colleagues. Protect your data with file versioning. That's very good. And file system backup snapshots. Next, back up your files, you'll click Backup Pool, select the folder to back up, and a real-time backup will save and protect your data. So in other words, it's going to automatically notice when files change in a particular folder you've selected on your computer, and it will automatically send that changed file that you just saved. It'll back it up instantly the minute you save it. It'll say, oh, that's new. And it'll keep an old version just in case you want to roll back. Not sure how many versions it goes back, but that's something I'm sure we can configure, because you don't want to eat up all your hard drive space with 2 million versions of the same file. So you can synchronize files across your devices. You can click the sync pool and click Easy Sync. Select the folder you want to sync. The data between Amber and your device will be both ways. So in other words, and I'm not quite sure why you'd want it both ways, but the idea is that, say you're working on a Word document and you save it to your My Documents folder. And you tell you configure this Amber IX to synchronize your My Documents folder. Rather than back it up where it's making a copy, it's synchronizing it. And what that means is somebody else then can go work on the document that you saved, and they can make changes to it. And when they make the changes, assuming they're synchronized, their My Documents folder, you both get each other's documents, and any documents of the same name will always have the latest version. And with versioning allows you to go back if for some reason you wanted your version that's unadulterated by the other person. So that gets a little bit technical for basic users, but it still may be a feature a basic user wants. And if you want that feature, then with that is going to come that technical complexity. There's no way around that. Now, you can also share any of the files you want on the AmberPro with anybody, anywhere. And to do that, it says you're going to bring up any file in the Amber IX app and click Share. Enter the email address of the person you want to share that file with and click Add. The data will be shared to your friends immediately. So that's very much the way Google Drive works when you want to share a file. Okay, click Start, and this is our, what is this? This is this computer, okay. This is our cloud folders. This is our local computers folders, and this is where we can configure all of this. It seems pretty simplistic. Now, as I mentioned, starting this video off, this has really been a video intended to introduce you to the concepts and the ideas of the product. Not necessarily a how-to video, because I don't really know myself, other than I know it's very simplified. And since I'm a technical person and I've been using network attached storage, it's probably a little harder for me to learn it because I'm trying to, my default is to do things manually. And it's sort of like driving a manual transmission, right? You have more control over shifting, more control over the car in that sense, how far up you want to go up the power band before you shift. You don't generally have that on an automatic transmission that does all the shifting for you. But again, with modern day transmissions, they often have sort of a manual mode in an automatic transmission that allows you to shift up or down, but not to skip gears. In much the same way, without losing, going too far off the track in my analogy here, we're talking about an automated process here. To simplify, in much the same way, driving an automatic transmission car is much easier for a first-time driver than teaching somebody how to drive a manual transmission. And if somebody's accustomed to driving a manual transmission and they've never driven an automatic, they've been driving a manual transmission for their whole life, suddenly you introduce them to an automatic, it might take a little getting used to not have to shift and, to worry about rolling backwards on a hill and things like that just generally don't happen with an automatic transmission. They might find themselves still getting into the old habits that they've sort of become accustomed to and ritualized through their everyday familiarity with that type of a manual transmission car, that suddenly now with automatic, they're still doing things a little bit the hard way because they haven't fully embraced the trust of the automatic. And that's where I am. I'm sort of that technical manual guy, and this is sort of an automatic, and I have to sort of familiarize myself with how it's doing things for me and to allow it to do that. So I see many of the questions that have been asked so far are people basically wanting to put that automatic into manual mode. And so what I keep emphasizing is it's not for you. Yes, you can do that, but it's very impractical and it defeats the whole point of the device. If you're somebody who likes the concept of having your own cloud service, you want to provide your own streaming, you want to put your own music, you can drop Spotify or Pandora or whatever, put your own music, your own movies, your own TV shows on your own storage and stream it to your phone when you travel, stream it to the TV in the bedroom. You don't want to, necessarily need streaming services. If you have your own movies you want to watch, you've got your own DVDs or Blu-rays you've ripped, etc. Home movies, maybe you get a camera like me, you like to watch yourself like me. I'm going to watch this video 10 times later. This device can allow you to stream that out and to share those videos, to share that music, to share the files, entering the email address of the person you want to share it with. They don't have to do anything special other than click the link you send them. Thomas Tidwell contributes $10, says, thank you, Carey, you're a tech. All right, so I think what I want to do now is I'd like to open this up and just kind of see how it's put together, because we're getting on to about 2 hours here. And I would like to keep this video around 2 hours. And I will need to familiarize myself with this by using it. And as I learn it, I'll make some follow-up videos and share with you what I've learned and some examples of how to use it. But for right now, let's shut it down. Let me see. Should I just hit the power button? There's probably an option somewhere in there to shut it down or restart it, much like a router or NAS would have in the menuing system. But I wonder what would happen if I hit the power button and let it go. Nothing. But if I hold the power button in, will it beep? I got 2 beeps. The light's going yellow. What that means is sometimes when you hold a power button in on a computer, it forces power off, which is not what you want to do on a NAS. You want it to properly shut things down. I don't want to open this up without shutting it down. In fact, with the cables plugged into it, it's impossible to open it up. So the light's blinking yellow, telling you that it's it's closing all the files and shutting the operating system down. And I expect the light goes off when it's off, or will it just stay amber? Shutting down a NAS can take about 2 minutes normally. So I'll be patient with it and see what it does. Yeah, so the light has gone off. So the yellow light was basically a amber light, if you will, letting you know that the device is in a shutdown process in this scenario. Initially, it was blinking. Was it blinking green before? It was waiting on us, and then it went solid blue when it was ready to, when we had it configured and ready to rock and roll. So normally under regular operation, we're going to see that solid blue. All right, so looking at the bottom of the unit, I see 2 screws down there. I'm gonna get my glasses so as I can seize. It looks like I might even be able to use my electric driver. Not captive screws, so don't lose them. This looks like it lifts. It's like it either lifts up or away. Which is it? Based on the fact that there's ports sticking through these holes, I would think it's pushed away. Might be wrong. Yeah, there it goes. Oh, check that out. So it tells us disk 1 and disk 2. So if it tells you, say, we have a disk failure and it says disk 1 has failed, how do you know which one's disk 1? I like that they do that. And it doesn't look like there's anything holding these in other than you just pull them straight out. Yep. So here they're using regular 2.5-inch desktop or portable desktop 2.5-inch Seagate Barracuda mechanical hard disk drives. Those drives are screwed in to the sled. And what did I do? I pulled this out with the label facing the edge, right? So that, I guess you want to put the camera down inside. And this is drive 2. Yeah, so in both cases, the label of the drive faces the edge. If we try and put this in this way, it ain't gonna work. It's gotta go the edge, the label facing the edge. I want to keep disk 2 in the disk 2 slot, and it looks like it just slide it in there. There's no latch or anything. Just kind of feel it bottom out. Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, there's our reset button, which is easier to access. That's through that pinhole that you would have to use a paper clip straightened out to use that. How is this? Oh, I take that back. That's the WPS button right there. The reset button. Yeah, you still would need something a little pokey to get down in there. That's the layout right there. Not much to it. Now, when you look at the specifications of this, it's spec'd out as a high-end router. I think it's got 2 gigs of RAM. Is that right? And again, it's going to keep the power consumption lower. If you're going to want to run a lot of containers on it, I don't know that 2 gigs of RAM is really going to be enough. I guess it sort of depends what it is you're running. Can you upgrade it? Don't know. Don't see any other. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm gonna see 2 screws right there. What do those go to? Let's go to this screw out. These are different from the ones that go on the cover. Don't mix them. At least in this case, they're color coded. The black screws go with the black cover. The silver screws go to the silver base. Does this just slide out of here, maybe? Maybe not. It looks like something there comes off, but not the unit itself, because I'm looking down in it and I can see this metal base goes underneath the plastic. So there's probably, I would guess, screws under the rubber feet. It's kind of like opening up your router to add RAM. Like, who does that? This is primarily a router first. What's underneath this foot? Inquiring minds want to know. There's so much content I can make with this, including apparently a teardown video could be its own little video just dedicated to the teardown of this device. I don't know that I've seen anybody tear one of these down on YouTube, now that I think about it. I don't know what they're using for glue on there, but that may just have to wait for another video. As for what these screws hold in, yeah, my guess is, looking at the seam here, this bottom would come off, and that the screws I just removed appear that they removed part of the frame, but this frame is also being held in by the housing. So it's going to take more than just those 2 screws. And I'm not sure I want to delve into that during today's video, now that we've so closely already encroached on 2 hours of this. And I don't want to bite off more than I can chew here. So let's just put this back. There's a little ledge that goes into this hole. Put that in first, and then we should be able to just push this down. It should click in place, and we secure it back with those 2 screws. But that's how you would get to the drives. Now, if I were going, and I've told you before, when I go to install a NAS for a client or myself, I want drives that I can easily swap out without the need for tools. This is not that. Okay, obviously. Changing out the drives, I feel should be toolless. The whole point of a RAID 1 configuration is not only do you have your data already cloned over to the other drive, which keeps you up and running, but then you can, while the unit is on, hot swap another drive into it and let it rebuild. The idea that I would have to essentially turn this upside down, I would have to unplug everything and shut it down in order to swap out the drive. I have a little bit of a problem with that. I feel like the drive should be hot swappable. Obviously, they're not hot swappable if I have to unplug everything to get that back cover off. It should also be toolless, in my opinion. However, this configuration would never be toolless because as soon as I take the drive out, it's in a sled that's held in with screws. One of the things I like about the Synology is the screws are optional. They have those little rails that go in place with the little nubs, and that it just locks the drive in, and no screwdriver is needed. I'm a big fan of that. It gets me in and out very quickly. My customers like that since they're being billed by the hour, and customers generally also appreciate the quick repair time. This isn't that. And you shouldn't be dealing with drives failing very often. And when they do fail, it's going to be more of an event for you to shut it down, unplug everything, get a screwdriver, pull the drive, take the screws out of this that are holding the drive into the sled, put the new drive in, put the screws back in, put the sled back in, put the back on, put the screws back into the back, and plug your cables back in and turn it back on. And then it should automatically rebuild itself. Or that'll be interesting. That may be something else we can try, is to simulate a drive replacement and see, does it automatically rebuild, or does it ask us if we want to rebuild? It notices that, oh, one of the drives is new. What does it do exactly? I don't know. So again, there's a ton of content I can make with this. And, you know, I won't make a bunch of it day after day, but I think every couple of months it'll be worth a revisit. And so, I mean, just the teardown alone, combined with simulating how a rebuild would be done, that in and of itself would be, in my opinion, good content. So, and then there's the apps themselves, the Docker apps. Again, I and none of my customers use any apps on our Synologies. Don't have any need to. Again, it could be a matter of ignorance is bliss in that RAID, and that I don't know that they could be using one of these apps to assist them, but they're not. None of my clients or myself are missing anything. You know, we're not saying, gee, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? Then I would perhaps look for an app to accomplish that. Essentially, all we're using our storage for is storage, to be able to access files for everybody in the office to have equal access to these files so they can work on the files. Multiple employees may be working on one file, though not necessarily at the same time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.